Hello, what is up, everybody? Happy Friday. Thank you for your patience here in the chat. We had some tech issues going on in the back end, or I had some tech issues going on in the back end, and they've been resolved, thankfully, and we'll be able to have our show as planned, as scheduled, and I'm really excited about that. Yeah, so super, super cool. Had a blast doing this last week, and you know, glad that it's Friday. It's finally the weekend, and I get to enjoy because it's been super, super busy. And, we're going to treat this like the cantina that it is. We're going to have company, good company, I think. And we're going to talk Star Wars. We're going to talk basically all manner of collectibles that you guys want us to talk about, that we decide to talk about. Is it possible that two cantinas might be colliding this evening here on Cantina Social Hour? Well, we're about to find out. Aries.
And I say, yes. Woo!
Love it. How you
Oh,
doing?
man. I'm great. I was just coming off my show, coming on your show, and I was saying, is it possible one cantina is going to go to another cantina? And I said, look, I'm always having the spotchka. I'm always drinking the coffee and spilling the coffee and the off-world Jawa egg juice and the wizard juice. But I said, I'm going to have one bourbon, one scotch, and one beer at Victoria's Cantina.
Nice. Well, we're honored. And yeah, right on. Well, cheers. Happy Friday.
Cheers to you, Victoria. Also to be here. I'm really looking forward to it. And happy Friday to you as well. Thank God it's Friday for sure.
Thank you. Most definitely. I certainly need it. So it looks like we have a good little group here that is forming with us. So we have for sure Freeze popping over from Aries channel. Been looking forward to this stream. And I read that in Count Dooku's voice. I've been looking forward to this. We have LBT Electric Dino. Thank you for the compliment. We got single songwriter, frequent visitor to your show too, Aries.
Oh, yes.
Collectors and travelers, make yourself comfortable at the cantina with special guests, the Dark Jedi. Yep, we got the Dark Jedi himself.
I am
We got
here.
Logan in the house. Logan, how's it going? Good to see you. We got Dan in here. Dan, how are you doing? We got Mary. I know you know Mary too, Aries.
Yes. Mary, what's going on? We got so many in here. They want to continue to spill coffee and some type of beverage, whatever beverage you're serving up, Victoria.
I'll serve up whatever the people ask for. Definitely. We got JJ. JJ, how's it going? Good to see you. We got Better A Bob. Better A Bob, how are you doing? Good to see you in here this evening. Paul says that he's double dipping. He says yes. We got Peak Obi-Wan with us. Happy Friday, Peak Obi-Wan. Eric is in the house. Eric, how are you doing? We've got nice little crowd forming in here. We got Ash here. Hi, Ash. Good to see you. We got 1.2 note. Happy Friday to you. Space Monkey, hello. How is it going? Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff.
Good stuff. I'm actually going in on my other browser to see everybody in here. Yes, it is a huge crowd and a nice crowd in here at your cantina, Victoria.
Totally.
So that is awesome.
Awesome. More the merrier. We got Adam in the house. Adam, how are you doing? Welcome back. We got Jurassic Dave with us. Hey, Dave, how's it going? And Mary says that she only frequents the best cantinas. So thank you, Mary.
Well, make sure you smash that like button with everyone that's in here right now for Victoria's Cantina. That's the way to do it.
Yes, thank you. Yes, smash the like button, as the kids say these days.
I'm still a kid, Victoria. I'm a kid at heart. That's why I collect. That's why I collect all these hot toys. I discovered hot toys and I was like, oh my God, goodness gracious me. These things look like real. It looks as real as, my family. It looks as real as my cousin, looks as real as the people on TV. And I just love hot toys, but I love collecting. I love Star Wars, really, is what I love. I love Star Wars. I love what Star Wars is doing.
Totally. And I think, I think anybody that I've met really that's like a serious collector that is passionate about, collecting, no matter what it is, Lego, Hasbro, Funko Pop, Hot Toys. We all have that inner child in us that loves having that piece of plastic in our hands that we can manipulate and set up on the shelf and put into different situations and take photographs of and just kind of just enjoy, and it all goes back to those movies that we adore, in this case, oftentimes it's going to be Star Wars. And totally, there's a little kid in here that's still very much a little kid and totally enjoys all the wonder that these things bring to us. So
Well,
absolutely.
let me ask you a question. Did you play with a lot of action figures or toys when you were a youngster? Is that kind of what sparks you to do what you're doing right now?
Absolutely. Yeah. So when I was a kid, late 80s, we had a lot of me and my siblings had a lot of family, like extended family. And we didn't have any cousins though, but we had a bunch of aunts, had a bunch of uncles, and we're so fortunate they showered us with toys. And a big part of that was, action figures, and there were other things too. Of course, there were like dolls and all kinds of things like that. But the action figures to me were always the most fun because Barbies and stuff like that were just Barbies, and that was the end of it, just like people, right?
Hmm.
But then you have like at the time the real Ghostbusters from Kenner, and those are like they came with little ghosts. You had
Hmm.
these mutant turtles that would fight crime. They would fight the Shredder. You had like you had all these other things, Swamp Thing. There was Batman, Batman 89, I mean, all these things that are not
Yes.
just regular people, like Barbie, like G.I. Joe. I never got into G.I. Joe because to me, they're just people with like guns and stuff. Like, not okay, not for me. I love the imaginary, more imaginative type stuff, like Star Wars, like Batman, like Ninja Turtles, like Ghostbusters. I was always really drawn to those toy lines because to me they were a lot more imaginative and fun, and that's why I think I gravitated towards figures overall.
So you like to escape from life or enter a different dimension, if you will, to whether you escape life or not escape life, just kind of taking that jump away from the normal everyday to just enjoy some of you mentioning Ninja Turtles, you're mentioning Star Wars, you're mentioning Batman 1989. This is the imagination of kids. This is what kids love. This is what we do. So it seems to me that you like that escape.
Certainly, and I'm still in that mindset. I only escape from that into the real world between 7:30 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. Then it's back into my imaginary world. So
I am right with you, Victoria. No, I'm the same way. I mean, and I love life and I love being able to the challenges that come with it and being able to talk with people and associate with people. But I've always, when I was a kid, loved to be, your imagination, like, whether you're watching something from Disney like Alice in Wonderland or Star Wars or Battlestar Galactica or Batman or Superman. I used to love the original, Superman with Christopher Reeve and Lex Luthor, Gene Hackman, and I grew up with all of that stuff, and I love to do that with my friends. So what we would do, like when the Star Wars action figures came out in the 70s, the late 70s, goodness gracious me, we would go ahead and it would seem like every other day I would be asking my parents, "Hey, I need another R2D2. I broke the darn thing. Oh, let's go ahead and go to KB Toy Hobby or Child World or Toys R Us, get another one of those $1.99 or $1.25, whatever they were back then, Star Wars figures. And that way R2D2 and the little Jawa can beat up Darth Vader and Obi-Wan Kenobi, and then Leia could beat everyone there, and we would just be having such an imaginative mind. And I remember taking our Star Wars figures, and our friends and I had like this dinosaur. I don't know what it was, but it was a huge diorama playset of like I don't know, the Lost World or something like that. They didn't have that back then, but like a big dinosaur playset, And we put our Star Wars figures, Darth Vader battling, riding a T-Rex and stuff like that. And I just love having that imaginative mind. And then that's why I still love to collect today, because it kind of reminds me of those times back then.
Yeah, totally. Very well said. And I completely agree. Yeah, it's and you got to celebrate those things that we love, because there's so many things in the world that aren't great. And they're definitely downers. And when you have these things that you can, you know, put your focus and energies into that are going to make you happy, then it's awesome. And I think more people should do that, no matter what it is. So, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I just had so much joy of those times. And not everything was joy, just like I'm sure, with so many people, it's
Yeah.
not. But when you're playing with toys, you're playing with toys.
Yeah.
And Star Wars is just that special thing for me, because those are the toys I most remember, when I was a kid. The toys that impacted my friends when we would get together, and just the films. I often the films are just so awesome, and I think it came out, Star Wars, in a time in the world where we needed Star Wars. We needed a New Hope. We needed, um, something to spill our coffee and drink our spotchka to.
Hmm.
And thank goodness that George Lucas was able to put out Star Wars, and it changed the world. I can't even imagine. I'll be honest with you. I don't know about you. I cannot even imagine my life without Star Wars, Victoria. Honestly.
I know it's really hard to fathom what that would look like. Yeah, it's really added so much. For me, like just growing up, Star Wars was always something that I could escape. I had a lot of struggles when I was a kid, and I think that's part of the reason I did turn to like toys and my imagination, because I could escape from a lot of the problems that are going on in my real life.
Hmm.
Um, but I never lost it. Even when I came out of that and things are good, like I still, enjoyed that. And Star Wars has really just, done a lot for me in so many ways. Just like I think it's helped. I mean, this channel, it's like Victoria's Cantina, that's from Star Wars. It's because I had a Star Wars collection one day, that I said, hey, I'm gonna start showing these parts of my collection on YouTube. And I see a few, there's like 3 or 4 people doing that. I'm gonna do it too. And I started doing that. And I can't think of any part of my life that Star Wars hasn't touched, honestly. Like it's impacted like, my work, honestly, like with kids, like just like having
Mm.
like the little bits to draw off of, the little wisdom and like, Jedi like mindsets and stuff, and using that, and it's impacted like, just my focus as a person, like, if I'm like training, like physically training, or just whatever it is, like it's integrated into every little bit of my life. Even like my wedding, we had a lightsaber duel,
Oh,
like
did you really?
yeah. Yeah, like for me, Star Wars is like, it means the world to me. And it's like you were saying earlier, it's so awesome that we're still getting content after all this time.
Yeah, no, it is. I don't know how you felt, but for me, when I learned that they were going to be coming out with the Force Awakens and the sequel trilogy, I lost it, because, and for me, one moment that will never leave me. And I really loved the sequels. What I didn't love was what they did with Luke, but that's a different story. But anyway, what I loved, one of the most memorable things, was to see Harrison Ford and Chewbacca come on the Millennium Falcon and the Force Awakens and say, Chewie, we're home. And I was just like, I remember being in the theater and just being so darn moved, to see Harrison Ford back in Star Wars, to see Carrie Fisher back in Star Wars, to see Mark Hamill, and he was in the end, in Star Wars. And even to see Anthony Daniels like C-3PO, it was just such another special moment where, you know, you're seeing Leia and Han, they're having that intimate moment, and then here comes 3PO. Well, so you probably don't recognize me with my red arm. And it's just like, it's such like I thought that they did such a great job trying to recapture some of that old magic. But
Yeah.
I was just so like excited to see Star Wars back. And I'm excited now because of the Mandalorian and what's in store. But I don't know how you felt when the sequels came out, but I was definitely very, very giddy to say, boy, we're going to get another trilogy, because I thought it wouldn't happen, but it happened.
I know. There were all those years where Lucas said, "No, this is the story. It's episode 1 through 6. That's it. There's no more."
Mm-hmm.
And then, yeah, it was. I still remember the day I was with a coworker in my car, and I think we had gone to lunch, and then we were coming back to work, and I had the radio on, and it was in October of 2012, I believe it was, and they said, Disney has acquired Lucasfilm, and they're going to be putting into production episodes 7, 8, and 9, and I lost my. It was great. I was like, what? Like, seriously? Um, yeah. So no, I was over the moon when they said sequels are coming, and I don't agree with all the creative decisions necessarily within the films, but I mean the fact that they exist, I mean, I always maintain that, like, there's not really such a thing as bad Star Wars. I mean, there may be Star Wars you like more than other Star Wars, but it's still Star Wars at the end of the day. If you can't find something in there that's entertaining about it, then that's too bad. And at the same time, luckily there's all this other Star Wars that you can focus on instead.
Yeah. Um, you know, I, let's face. I think it's the highest grossing trilogy of all time is the sequel trilogy. Um, and I thought that they did a good. I love what they're doing right now with the Mandalorian. They clearly went really. They put a lot of thought and effort in doing what they did with Luke in the Mandalorian season 2 finale, which I was just watching with my wife yesterday. We wanted to watch it, and then we went right to the Book of Boba Fett, chapter 6, to see when Mando goes to to see R2, to find to asking R2 where, I'm looking for Skywalker. I'm here to see the kid. And it was just, what an awesome job they did to kind of, I feel like, fix that one part, which was Luke, which
Yeah.
he crushed those dark troopers with like tin cans. And I was watching it last night. I'm like, wow, because how long it took the Mandalorian a while to get rid of one of them. And then Moff Gideon's like, let's see how you handle a whole platoon. And Luke Skywalker comes in and just crushes them like soda cans. And it was just so glorious. And I feel like that the sequel trilogy, I feel like Disney, Favreau, and Filoni are going through great pains to kind of make it all make sense. I don't know if you remember, but I remember how much heat, and it actually hurt my soul, that the Phantom Menace got and the prequels got. It was and it was just as hot as the Last Jedi. It really, really was. But the internet wasn't as profound. There wasn't like a bunch of channels like you or like me coming onto the scene back then. So things didn't go viral really back then. But the amount of talk about Jar Jar Binks and how it's not as good as the original, it was just. But I think my wife and I went to the theater 23 times to see the Phantom Menace. Just loved it so much. And now there was so much heat back then. Even when they came out with Attack of the Clones, they were making fun of the title, like it's like Attack of the Killer Tomatoes. Like we could have come out with a more creative name. I remember all this kind of stuff. But you look at it now, and everyone's like, the prequels are the bomb. The prequels are awesome. So you have to wonder, is it possible that the same thing happens with the sequels? And I know I say yes, but I think Favreau and Filoni and Disney are going to accelerate that personally.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it was bad back in '99. Yeah, it was really rough. Even Attack of the Clones. I think Revenge of the Sith tended to get a little bit less of that, but it still had, some of it. Um, and I think that will happen. I think that the people at the time, when the prequels are coming out, that tended to hate on it were older fans that grew up with the OT, and that's what they expected. They expected that to be recreated again, and there's just no doing that. And when they got the prequels, there was all that backlash and trolling and all that bad stuff. And I know famously, like Ahmed Best, who played Jar Jar,
Hmm.
was driven almost to the point of suicide because of that, and just terrible. um I think the people that are saying now that the prequels are good are probably people that were younger, and now they're like older, and like yeah, that's what they grew up with. That was what they knew. That's what they went to the theater to see. Not A New Hope, not Empire, not Jedi, but Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, and Revenge of the Sith. And there's going to be another generation that's their Star Wars that they're growing up with is going to be The Force Awakens, The Last Jedi, and The Rise of Skywalker. And you know 15 years from now, that's going to they're not going to, probably a lot of them won't be old enough to remember all of the hate and the backlash, because that they're younger. They're probably not on Twitter like we are all the time, or on social media. And the general audience loves those films. If you're not like if you're not a hardcore Star Wars fan, the general audience loves those films. I know my family did. I know my husband, he's not into Star Wars. Like I mean, he's in it because into it, but he's not into it on his own. And he loved the sequels. Like that's his favorite Star Wars. So I know that there will come a time when the older fans that are hating on these movies go off into the sunset for whatever reason. And they'll have, the legacy will change over time. I think we're going to definitely see that.
Yeah, and I think it's on. I think the hate needs to stop when you talk about Ahmed Best, and I remember in some of the struggles that some of these actresses and actors have in here. That's why I think for me as a content creator, I always get a lot of feedback and personal messages saying, "Aries, you're so positive. Why do you stay so positive, even when you know Hot Toys makes a mistake or this or that?" And I think it's just very, very important to remember that these are all human beings. These aren't like little deities or whatever that are just performing these things. And I know for me, I, I come in and I watch Star Wars, and I get into Star Wars for a positive vibe, for a and while criticism is appropriate, and I think should be measured out when it's appropriate, the hate part of it is unfortunate. It's the wrong word. I just don't like it. I always feel like there is a positive way to look at it. And it's such a shame. Like even with the sequels, I know that my family, my wife loves. Speaking about your husband loving the sequels, my wife loves the sequels as well. Um, my second oldest daughter, absolute favorite is the sequels, and she'll dress up like Ray. She looks a lot like Ray. She's also a professional MMA fighter. But yeah, it's I think that they're definitely going to be looked at different in the future. But I'll tell you what, though, Victoria, the Star Wars fandom, at least online, can be very hard. Can be very hard on Star Wars. I almost feel like it's one of the hardest. Is Star Wars gets hit hard. Um, I don't know if you feel the same way. I feel like it does sometimes.
Oh no, for sure. It definitely, and I think that speaks to how passionate the fans are about Star
Hmm.
Wars, and they know what they like, and that's not a bad thing. But at the same time, things evolve, and things have to be timely. when the OT came out, it was timely, right? It was in a lot of it was like little bits that were in response to like what was going on in the political landscape of the time. So I mean, it's you got to keep content relevant, otherwise people aren't going to watch it. That's the bottom line. These studios, they want to make money, and if they're not, casting the widest net possible, that's not going to be good for their bottom line. It's not going to be good for keeping that franchise alive. So but yeah, I want the hate to stop too. It's not pretty. It's gotten better. I think The Mandalorian went a long way to helping, kind of push a lot of that off to the side, but there's still some out there. And it's just one of those things. If there's something you don't like, you can maybe mention it, and then you can, kind of just, you got to accept it and move on. Like you can't keep dwelling on, oh, this movie is terrible. It's terrible. It's terrible. And every time somebody mentions it, oh, it's terrible. It's terrible. Like that's what I see a lot of like on social media. And it's just like, if you're spending that much time on something you don't like, then you either really secretly like it, or you don't have any. You need to reprioritize what's going on in your life and focus on the things that you do like, so that you're not dwelling on what you don't. So it's weird, but yeah, I really want all that to quit happening too.
Well, I know for me, if I don't, there's plenty of shows streaming that I don't like. There's plenty of movies I don't like. There's some sports that I don't like, and you know what I spend time doing? I spend no time investing my time in it, but I don't feel like I need to attack it. I don't feel like I need to obsess over, attacking it. And there's been shows that I watched a few seasons, and I didn't like the direction they were going. While albeit disappointing, I'm like, okay, well, I guess that's I'm not going to do that anymore, and I move on and I find something else. But it's just it is very passionate. Um, but I feel like that Disney is understanding that they have very, very passionate diehard fans, but they also have this vast opportunity to attract new fans and this vast world, this galaxy, if you will, of new fans, which they've done with The Mandalorian, which they've done with the child, which is now named Grogu. And I think that they've seen some of the things that have upset fans in the past and are doing a very, very good job. It'll never be perfect. But they're doing a very, very good job in mending those fences, but also keeping the public interested, because really that's going to be their biggest bread and butter in the future. I'm hearing right now from some of my friends, in China, that Grogu is just taken off and is becoming like one of the hottest things over there. Everyone's talking about Grogu. That couldn't be a better sign for Star Wars, because what happens is they really didn't have much interest in Star Wars, and especially as it went on late. It's not very big over there, but Grogu's very, very big, and now like the biggest thing. So you have to wonder, once you start getting into something, you start wanting to learn, well, what's the origins of this character? Oh, it's Star Wars. Well, maybe let's go ahead and learn a little bit more about the original trilogy, or about the prequels, or about the sequels, or about this or that. And all of a sudden Star Wars starts picking up steam. But I'm looking so forward. I I loved The Mandalorian. I loved the Book of Boba Fett. I thought it was The Mandalorian, another season of The Mandalorian, but focused on Boba Fett more in the first half. I absolutely loved it. I love the Obi-Wan series, and seeing Ewan McGregor back, my God, I'm really looking forward to the Andor series now. I don't know if you're on mute, Victoria, or maybe I'm on mute.
No, that was me on mute. It's been a long day. My apologies, guys. No, there's definitely some Star Wars for everybody. If you don't like one thing, the good thing is there's X, Y, and Z show. There's X, Y, and Z movie. There's books. There's comics. There's collectibles, create your own stories. There's so many options with Star Wars. It's just such a big, vast expanse of a story, and that's one of the great things about it. So, definitely very well said. I want to take a look here at the comments and see. I saw a few things come up when we're talking about, why we like Star Wars and why we gravitate towards it. And Better Ray Bob said, all the way back to when I was a kid, action figures were a tangible representation of my imagination adventures that were acted out in the playroom and backyard. Yeah, and I think that's
Absolutely.
a lot. That's a big part of it for a lot of us that are really into the toys, right? Is that we did have those interactions and those hours of play out in the yard, at home with our friends, with our siblings, and we created those memories. And now when you look at that, even if it's a new figure, you still remember what that meant to you.
And what's interesting about that too, you have to wonder with this new generation, and I see it, like with my nieces and nephews, so much more. They have toys and they play with toys, and they love seeing like my stuff. They're like mesmerized, but so much on the phone, so much on the computer, so much on their pads, so much with the games and the videos. And you try and put a toy in their hand, it's like, yeah, okay, but where's the phone? I mean, I'm looking at like my niece and dad, like, hey, they know more about the latest iPhone than I know, and it's like 6 years old, and I'm like, goodness gracious. Like, here, let me help you with that. But I'm like, wow, I don't even, I can't even figure all the phone. I'm just trying to make a phone call, um, try to post something on Instagram for my channel. But it's really interesting. I hope that toys continue to be something that continues on in the generations to come, because everything is so digital nowadays. And
Right.
for me, like collecting like the like you collect the Black Series and the Hot Toys and stuff like that is just, it's not really very digital about them. It's just a toy, which is cool.
Yeah, now you have things like non-fungible tokens and just like stuff that's just like so like out there and weird. And I hope toys continue to, because you're right. I have nieces and nephews myself, and I work with kids, and I see what their play patterns are and what they're into. And a lot of it is YouTube, a lot of it's TikTok. They just like watching like little videos, short videos that, and then they'll move on to the next video, then the next one, the next one. Um, and people that are fueling action figures like that market, they're older people, they're people that grew up with that, kids from the 80s and the 90s, and they're fueling that market. There's a lot of toy lines out there that are built primarily around nostalgia. You could say the vintage collection is one.
Hmm.
There's companies like McFarlane. They just brought back like this the DC Super Powers line. There's a lot of stuff that is GI Joe that's just like targeted around nostalgia. And if it's not kids that are buying those, then it's people like us that are buying them. And we need those younger people to come into those things too, because if they don't, then once we stop or we move on, or whatever happens, you're not going to have new blood coming in to maintain that. So I hope that that it keeps going. But if it doesn't, I mean, I guess I could say that it's been 40 years of this stuff, so that's not a bad run either.
Well, I see that Clone Trooper put in a comment and said my son has zero interest in toys, and yeah, it's just it's a very digital, and I knew back when I was a kid, so I'll probably reveal my age, but I loved my Commodore VIC 20 and playing Voodoo Castle and my Atari 2600, the original one. I remember staying in line at video playback, waiting for my Pac-Man cartridge to put into my 2600. But we still played. I mean, that was like, there was time for that, and then there was time for figures, and there was time to, play baseball or whatever the heck we were doing, or then. But yeah, it's very. I almost look at this, and it's very, you know, you would watch the old Star Trek, Gene Roddenberry, put in those phones. And it was amazing just how And then all of a sudden we got the flip phones. It was like, wow, Gene Roddenberry is a genius, which he was, seeing the future that way. But honestly, it's so, I can't even remember, and I do remember the time very vividly, but I talk about this a lot with my wife. I was like, can you even imagine life without your phone? I said, because I'll walk in the city. I will walk down the block and everybody has their phone. Okay. And we're just like this. And we're walking down. I mean, there could be like a missile up above. You wouldn't even know about it. It's kind of like Will Smith coming out on Independence Day. He's looking at the newspaper. He doesn't realize the mothership is up above. And I'm like, I'm thinking back to when I was a teenager or in my early 20s, and no one had these. When you start getting these flip phones, it'd be like Captain Kirk. It was cool, but you would just be walking, looking straight ahead, looking to your left, looking to your right, looking above, looking here. It's crazy. I can't even imagine life, Victoria, without this thing anymore.
I know. It's insane. And, the kids that I work with, I just like, they have no semblance of what life was like before the internet. And, like, I kind of forget myself because, you think about it, like, go back to, the mid, even to the late 90s when like the internet wasn't like in every household, what did people do? I mean, we obviously we managed, right? We made it this far as a civilization without the internet.
Yeah,
We played, we played outside. We got creative with our toys. Video games were in there, that didn't connect to the internet. So, but yeah, kids these days don't know what that was like. They could never be able to. I don't think they would survive in that kind of an environment where you didn't have tech. I myself can't imagine going back to that because, I mean, yeah, same thing. I mean, I can't compare this to a rotary dial. Like, I mean, that was great for its time, but like, yeah, it's just really hard to imagine not having the convenience of messaging somebody, of confirming an appointment, of checking email, of getting directions, to go somewhere, like just all the things that this is useful for, paying, at the checkout. Like, it's just unfathomable, like you're saying, like, to, what life would be like to not have that.
I actually remember way back using a map to drive. You would go into your gas station or your local like 7-Eleven, and they would have the map, and you're picking one up and you're opening it up and you're mapping it out, kind of like in going to see Elrond, saying, "Look, there are rune letters here. See, letters that can only be read by the." But now it's just, hey, I got Google Maps, baby. I don't need any of that.
Yeah. Did you ever? Were you like me and you could never fold the map back the way that it was?
Yeah, every darn time. It was like a puzzle. Oh my God. I could never fold it back right at all. It was just like sometimes it would be like, okay, throw that thing in there. It'd be a darn mess. No, you're 100% right. You're making me spill my coffee here, Victoria. This is a lot of fun.
Yeah. Kids will never know the struggle.
No. I almost feel, gosh, I mean, I guess thank God for Boy Scouts or thank God for and Girl Scouts. I mean, what happens if the power goes out for even a little bit? Do you remember like that show Revolution? It had Giancarlo Esposito in it. It was just some years ago. It had like 3 seasons. And it's like one of those apocalypse, like the power went out or something like that. And I don't know, but it's almost like, I know for me, when the power goes out, it's like crap. No air condition, no heat, no. Okay, what are we gonna do? I can't. The phone. It's almost scary. But I remember going way back where it didn't matter so much. So it's just so.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Totally. Yeah. Along 30 years ago, wouldn't have been a big deal. You would just, okay. And it did happen. I remember like growing up as a kid, in Texas, we'd get hurricanes and stuff every now and then, and the power would go out for like days. And it was just like, just a fact of life, it's like, okay, there's no TV, there's no internet. All right. It is what it is. I'll read a book or I'll go play outside, it's play with my dog, it was kind of that like, but like, Yeah, it would be unreal if that kind of thing happened today, and I think people would just be, like, overwhelmed with boredom, and not to mention, you'd probably start seeing some crazy things happen because people just wouldn't know how to adapt to that situation, but you're right, like, I was in scouts too, when I was, like, little, and, getting some of those life skills and stuff, like, I don't know, like, I mean, I know some kids still get that and still do that, but I kinda wonder, like, 20, 30 years from now when those kids are, like my age and beyond, like what, well, if they got into a situation like that, what are they going to do? I hope they're okay.
It's kind of interesting. My oldest daughter can't stand the technology and the internet, and she really can't. She's like an old soul. I don't know where she came from, but she likes to read books. She like she tries to promote herself as a professional MMA fighter. She's like, can someone else do this because I can't stand Instagram. I can't stand any of that social media. I'd rather go ahead and read a book. Can't I just train? I just want to train and throw a punch and throw a kick. I'm not interested in any of this. Well, someone's reaching out to you as I don't care. I don't want to deal with it. And it's kind of funny. We would go on vacations. We go on vacations. And even though that they're adults now, we get together. And it's kind of funny, playing games. Like we'll get together, we'll play like Scrabble or Boggle or one of these games and going out and doing stuff outside and playing some of those outdoor games, going swimming. It's almost like, hey, if we get together and want to watch this, it's almost like we're taking a vacation from this technology. To be honest with you, I mean, for work, and I'm sure I have to be on it all the time and always on the phone. I want to get away from the darn thing, throw it off, and go out into the wilderness and kind of be on Tatooine like Boba Fett and not even have it. But it's interesting, isn't it? It's just so crazy.
Yeah, yeah, totally. It totally is. It is so interesting. um
And you know what's funny? I was thinking about this the other day, and I don't know if it ties in or not. But when you watch Star Wars, um, it kind of has a little bit of, but it has so much technology, right? You have the warp, you have you have the warp speed, you have all the technology, but yet you have all the like simple stuff too, which is really cool. I always felt that way anyway.
yeah, that's true, but they don't have smartphones, so
No, no, they don't. They
yeah,
don't. They got R2D2 though.
they got R2D2, yeah, for sure. um Yeah, but there is something to be said for just taking your phone and just like casting it aside for a weekend, or going on vacation, just leaving it in your suitcase and going out and taking in the sights and the culture and the food and everything. I mean, like some I've gone like on like a Saturday morning, for example. We'll go to breakfast, go for a walk at the beach, come home, and then I'll realize after a bit, oh, it's been 6 hours since I looked at my phone. And I'm like, that was actually kind of nice, like I had a break. I didn't have to worry about work. I didn't have to look at, what's going on Instagram. Like it was just, it's kind of nice to disconnect. And I think even when like I go on vacation, like sometimes I get into this, oh, look at this sunset. I gotta get a picture of that. Like, yeah, I get into that mindset. And then I think later, like how many times have I gone back to my phone and looked for that picture? Like not very many times. Sometimes it's
Hmm.
just if I happen to be looking for something else and then I come across it. Oh yeah, I remember taking that picture of that beautiful like mountain, but I remember it more, like being there. I think and experiencing things and living them, I think is a lot more rewarding than just being there like, okay, trying to get a photo of something.
I know and I know my wife, she'll get on all of us if we when we go on vacation and she's watching us on the couch and we're like this on our phone. She's like, guys, gals, seriously, like put the darn thing down. We're on vacation. But it's kind of funny. You had a comment there from Adam Kennedy that's cracking me up about a coworker. That he's saying a coworker of mine has used Google Maps on her phone to find our office every day. and it's still helpless without it. Society would collapse. No, I agree with him, Victoria, because um you could fall into that trap. You get so used to just relying on the tech. If for whatever reason the tech goes out, the power goes out, or something happens, can you use a map? Can you? I can't fold the map, but I could use a map. But it is a little bit scary how dependent we get on that stuff. He brings up a great point, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And I don't think that it's all people's fault. You know, the tech companies and have just made us so reliant on our phones. Like they've made it so that you need your phone, or you need the internet at least to pay a bill. You need the internet to send a text. You need or SMS or whatever. But like you need it to to do anything, to interact with your family, to see what your family is doing. Like our lives are just so reliant on that. So yeah, I think people definitely use it too much, but I don't think people are 100% to blame, because obviously things have been made so that we need that, right? Like we can't live without that at this point, and we've adapted to that
Well,
mindset, for
I
better or for worse.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think that Better A Bob, he said in here, I will say that one advantage to modern cell phones is that we have a still and video camera in a much more manageable package than what we had in the 80s. I know, right? And remember those Polaroids and those things we had to lug around? No, it's all good. Like I don't want life without my smartphone or my iPhone. I
Yeah.
don't want life without that. But I also realize, hey, I still got to practice the other stuff. That way, I keep my mind sharp, just in
Right.
case I got it. But yeah, the convenience stuff is like, I got that way. I don't even know how we're getting this conversation. I got that way with fast food, because it's fast and it's convenient, and I want to move and I want to go. But I don't know. I feel a lot better, but I feel a lot better if I don't have that all the time,
Yeah.
and I cook food that's more like home cooked, or maybe it's not fast, but then it takes longer and I don't got the time. But then I feel better. So sometimes I feel like you got to have what is
Balance.
that word? Balance.
Yeah, for sure. um yeah, absolutely. Like everything in moderation, everything in balance. This is an interesting comment. Single songwriter, it's very hard to take a picture or video of a real UFO because there's something in our phones that emits a signal to alert them, compared to the olden days of film. You can capture them undetected.
Yes. And do I believe him? And do I think he is 100% accurate? And I say, yes,
It could very well
absolutely.
be. It could very well be. This is the kind of stuff I'm into. I actually have, I don't know if you've seen it, Aries, on Victoria's Cantina. I think it's from 2017. I actually capture what I believe is it's a UFO because it's unidentified, but I think there's a good case to be made that it is something very unusual that you would not see to day. So I don't know if you've seen that or not, but it's
I have not, but I'm going to spill my coffee and go check it out. So you have that on your channel. That's
yes, it's
fantastic.
called UFO over San Diego is the name of the video. And so I guess since I'm talking about it already, in case anybody doesn't know the story, I'm sure I've talked about it on this show at some point. I was out getting my car worked on. It was in March 2017, and I live by the ocean, San Diego. So I happened to look up, and there were some seagulls, like just kind of like circling like that, just flying around. I was like, oh, seagulls. But then, like beyond them, I noticed a star. Like at 10:30 in the morning, there's just a star, and I'm like, huh, that's weird. There's no stars out during the day. Why is there a star? And it was just like still, like a star, and then it just starts like moving really slow, and then it comes to a stop, like that complete stop.
Hmm.
And then I'm like, that is so weird. And like every few seconds, it's catching like the glare of the sun. So I guess there's some movement there or something, but it's stationary.
Hmm.
So then I
Hmm.
pull out my smartphone, and I start, like, I'm thinking to myself, this is never going to come out in a photo. It's like a speck. if you've ever tried to take a picture of a star like at night, it never comes out. So like I'm like, okay, it's not going to work, but I'm going to do it anyway. So I start taking like photos. I take a little video clip, and then it's like, okay, your car's ready, and then I forget about it. Like I don't even look at it until like the next day. But then when I get home, I start looking at it, and like this object, apparently in the video, it's captured from being stationary to going like that, like across the sky, like faster than like anything I've ever like seen. So definitely a strange occurrence.
Absolutely. No, that is such a remarkable story, Victoria, for sure. Someone's getting my attention in there. Hey, see you later. But you know what's interesting about that is, so you don't, this story that these stories that we're told about shooting stars in the sky, and you have to wonder, is it a shooting star or is it an unidentified flying object? And I say it's a UFO for sure. I mean, gosh, how much evidence do we need? You know what's so funny? We talk about this technology, okay? Ever since Roswell, ever since after World War II, really, at Roswell, the technology of our technology, humankind, and our civilization has it is so highly advanced in such a short span of time. And you have to wonder, is that because of just we figured it out, or did we actually reverse engineer some technology of UFOs like you're talking about that was kind of put in our laps, if you will? And I think that that's what has happened, because it doesn't make any sense really to me that we would be able to advance as a society this quickly over the last 100 years, where we weren't for how long before then.
Right. Even the last, like the internet age, right? Like, I mean, if you look at humanity, like post World War II, like it's basically the same up until like the mid 90s or so, mid to late 90s. It's basically where it's the same. There's some video games that are introduced, but I mean, people are basically doing the same thing throughout that whole time. But then the internet comes about, it gets mainstream, cell phones, technology, and all that. And then it's like, boom, it's like from like the late 90s to like now, like that increase is just huge.
Yeah, no, it's the increase is like astronomical, and yeah, it's really crazy. So yeah, chips in the phones that alert them. There's all kinds of I love all those conspiracy theories, but it's kind of it's how about the theories that the moon is complete, there's millions of people on the moon, the planets are inhabited like Mars, and um you have to wonder about all of that stuff. It's kind of like before we discovered America, it was like, wow, I can't believe the world isn't flat, I can't believe that there, and I think it's the same thing. I think that we're just a very small part of a huge gigantic galaxy, so maybe the force is out there.
Could very well be. There could be an actual galaxy that has something very similar to the Force, and lightsabers, and spaceships that can fly at the speed of light. Like maybe one day we'll find out. Maybe we'll get that technology for ourselves. But yeah, lots of great comments in the in the comments here. So Adam says he saw Rogue One on IMAX today, and there was a full Andor scene that was very interesting. So that's pretty cool. I'm really excited for Andor.
I am really excited for the Andor series. Um, what do you think is going to happen? I mean, I was talking about this the other day um, on the show. As a matter of fact, I think you were on at that point where we were talking about possible villains that could come
Mhm.
on there. I had up Grand Admiral Thrawn,
Yep.
along with Grand Moff Tarkin, Vader, the Emperor, and Krennic. Um, but the way it's looking, where they're getting into all this political intrigue with Mon Mothma and the underbelly of, getting nitty gritty of the politics and the all that kind of stuff that goes into it, and so on and so forth. I would think it seems apropos to have some of these characters in there. Maybe not so much lightsaber duels, but you know, I think just I know that there's lots of tension between Darth Vader and Grand Admiral Thrawn, um, the Emperor, who's in charge of them all. Everyone trying to get their place to be what they are. So I think it's a perfect opportunity to get into all of that political aspect of that tension,
Yep.
with the Empire.
Yeah, definitely. I'm excited for it. And that's a great period too, that time between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope. I mean, a lot of people liked Rogue One. I really liked Solo. I loved Solo, and the Obi-Wan Kenobi series takes place in that era, and you know, I think there's a lot of people want to see, the Empire, more of the Empire, like at its full like power. The height of its power. What was it doing to subjugate planets? What was it doing to root out the last few like Jedi that are out there? Like, what is it doing to like completely like dominate this galaxy? And yeah, I really enjoyed that segment on your show talking about that the other day, because you think about that, and like this is the time that you have the Emperor, Darth Vader, Grand Admiral Thrawn, Grand Moff Tarkin, Director Krennic. They're all out there during this time frame, and they're all doing their things. So I think, if any show for any of those characters to make an appearance, I think this would be it. This is the one that's focused more on the beginnings of the rebellion and the Empire. And I think we'll see. I mean, just thinking in terms of statistics, I think there's a good chance we have to see at least one of those. I don't know who, but I think there's a good chance we got to see one or two of those characters in Andor, and I hope that that's a reality, because then we get merchandise that we can buy too.
Yeah, there'll be merchandise that we could spill our coffee over. Um, Goodness gracious. Yeah, I don't know. Um, if they're even going to go that route or have, I think that there will be at least one, but I think that, they have Forrest Whitaker is confirmed to be in there as Saw Gerrera, for instance.
Yeah.
K2SO is in there. I'm forgetting the actor's name, but I know we all know him. Is in there as well. But I think that, if you're going to get into some of the, I don't know, some of the politics and whatnot, the grandest politician of them all was Emperor Palpatine. And while we look at him a lot of times as shooting lightning, and we just saw the Obi-Wan series where Vader and Obi-Wan are going all these lightsaber battles, certainly I think that we may get some, kind of like that part in A New Hope, where they got in with the leaders on the Death Star, and those guys are like, hey, well, what about the how will the Emperor maintain control? And then Moff Tarkin was like, well, he's dissolved the Senate permanently. The regional governors will keep the people in line, and he's dissolved the Senate and all that kind of stuff. So I'm hoping we get some of that to learn more about the Empire. But even if we don't
Yeah.
in the show, I bet you we do, maybe in something that they're going to put out.
Yeah, the Senate is, we've seen in the trailers, right? The Senate is going to make an appearance. So,
Hmm.
we're definitely going to get a little bit of, I think, of that story, a little bit more of and, I know a lot of people think about the Senate and they think about like the prequels and like the unsolicited taxation of trade routes that, or
Hmm.
whatever, it says in the opening crawl of the Phantom Menace. But yes, I'm here for it. Just give us more Star Wars. I know that there's stuff that with Ahsoka coming, there's stuff with Lando coming, there's animated series. There's the droids thing. I mean, there's a lot of stuff coming, and at the end of the day, it helps to get over the hardships of day to day, like work and other struggles. So just give us more of that. you know a little bit of positivity goes a long way, and makes the world a little bit better. So more and more and more.
Yeah, no, and I think there's a lot of good comments that are in here in regards to this, and I'm looking forward to uh, the crazy directions that they're going. I wanted to ask you. I'm over the moon that Rosario Dawson is playing Ahsoka Tano because I think that she is incredible. And you mentioned the Ahsoka series, and I love the casting that they're doing. Katie Sackhoff as Bo Katan, Ming-Na Wen as Fennec Shand, Pedro Pascal is just killing it as the Mandalorian. Diego Luna, they're using him again. He's just gonna be awesome to see him. I love the casting that they're doing, but I really love what they did with Ahsoka. I feel like Rosario Dawson is Ahsoka. I feel like she's always been Ahsoka. That's the magic. It's not like I got to look there. I'm like, okay, you're doing. I feel like, oh, there she is. That's the live action Ahsoka. She always was. And I think if you could give, for me anyway, if you give me that impression that you've always were, then you've just hit it. You've just nailed it.
Yeah, for sure. And that's what actors do, right? They convince you that if they're good at what they're doing, they convince you that they've always been that character, that they're going to continue to be that character. And yeah, I agree, she's great in that role. And um and they're continuing to like evolve her look a little bit. She did change a little bit aesthetically between the Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett. She looked great in the Book of Boba Fett, like just like really, really good.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, she
yeah, so
really did.
it is a process, for those little nitpicks. But yeah, I think she sells the character really well. And even if you didn't watch the Clone Wars or Rebels, I mean, she's still very convincing as like a brand new character into Star Wars. So yeah, she's great.
What about so before that comes on, you got Andor coming out over here. Then you got the Mandalorian season 3.
Hmm.
It's coming out in February, and you know that there's going to be an incredible, and it's not even needed, hype train for the Mandalorian season 3. I think it's going to be the most epic season. If it could get any better than season 2, but it's going to just all the Mandalorians that they're going to show in Mandalore, the whole Luke, Din Djarin, Grogu connection with Ahsoka that they're going to absolutely, 100% continue it. They kind of set you up for it in the Book of Boba Fett as well, and I just cannot wait for what Favreau and Filoni are going to throw at us in that series for sure. I actually have a hunch, and this is a far out claim, but a lot of people who follow my channel know that I feel this way. But I feel like the twist in this story is going to be that the Mandalorian, they're all Mandalorians. Bo-Katan's a Mandalorian, Din Djarin's a Mandalorian, but the Mandalorian is and always was Grogu. That's what the story, that's going to be the big twist. Because, I look at Din Djarin and I watch him trying to be political. I watch him trying to talk to the Imperial officers. I watch him try to, even less than Boba Fett, who doesn't want to just sit on a throne. The last thing that guy wants to do is sit there and rule like Elrond and Rivendell. That's the last thing he wants to do. But Grogu, I believe, is going to come full circle. And I believe what they're setting us up for is he is going to be a Mandalorian and a Jedi, which right now ticks off the armor and ticks off Luke. But I think that's the whole reason why they show the dichotomy between the armor and Luke. But I think it's going to come full circle. He's going to rule Mandalore. He's going to be a Jedi. And Din Djarin's going to be his top general. But I actually think Grogu is the Mandalorian.
Yeah, could very well be. It'll be really interesting to see. I certainly agree that it's going to be epic. I don't know if this is the last season of Mandalorian. I mean, if it is, then they definitely need to go all out and make it like as epic as possible. Season 2 really expanded on what season 1 did by going to all these other worlds and incorporating like more bigger players into the story, into the show. And yeah, the whole thing with, it sounds like, with Planet Mandalore, that they want to, Din Djarin wants to go back there and see what he can do, right, that we've seen in like those trailers that they showed at Celebration. um yeah, I think it's gonna be pretty grand. I'm really stoked for it. And it's gonna be back to back, right? Because it's Andor, then it's, I think, Mando season 3, and then I think it's Ahsoka, and then I don't even know about the order, right? But we
You're
know
hitting,
Lando, possibly another season of Obi-Wan. Um, it's just gonna be ongoing, and that's pretty, that's cool. That's something to look forward to for sure.
well, and I actually think you're going to get a second season of the
Mm,
Book of Boba Fett because I think it's going to be part of the whole Mando verse. And then I also heard that the way that they're going to do a season 4 of The Mandalorian, but did you hear this too? But it's going to be called something different. But that's how they're going to do this. So they're having season 3, and I really think they're going to continue on with it. But then they changed the name a little bit. Which,
mm,
did you hear that? I've been hearing this for a
mm,
while, and I don't
yeah.
know why. Or what? Maybe the reason is, I mean, eventually, do they jump the timeline into something, or sometimes these shows do that?
Yeah.
How do you think? Because we talk about this a lot in my family, because we're Grogu fanatics. How, it's kind of like, remember, Groot, and then you got teenage Groot. How are they going to age Grogu? Have you ever thought about this? And I imagine, Victoria, you have, being the Star Wars fan that you are. How do you think they're going to age him? And because they have to hit this out of the park. They know already. I know that they're having tons of meetings, that they've got such a golden egg. They have got the greatest thing. This their new Mickey Mouse. They can't age him wrong. Like that first Sonic that they put out where everyone was like, no, no, you got to redo it. And then they redid Sonic, and then it's been great with Jim Carrey and all that. But how are they going to do it?
I have no idea. Did you see the little leaked trailer from Celebration?
No, I didn't. I didn't.
Okay.
The-
Well, if you're avoiding it, I won't say anything specific to the trailer. Um, but I think it kind of somewhat delves into what you're talking about.
Oh, what's
Um,
what leaks? What I wasn't even like when you say little. Was it a leak to a certain show or just in general?
yeah, so there was a trailer to The Mandalorian season 3 that was shown at Star Wars Celebration, but it was never published like officially.
No, I didn't
Um,
see it.
yeah, so there's a few copies on YouTube. Some of them are worse than others. But yeah, there is a little clip where like Grogu says like I guess his first word, or he says a
Oh,
word.
really? What did you
Yeah.
think then? What did you think?
It was cute. It was cute. I mean, it's just such a brief little thing in this trailer though. So I don't know if I think we're definitely going to see his evolution as not only as a character, but in terms of a member of his species. He's gonna, even if it takes hundreds of years, he's still gonna grow up, right? He's still gonna change, little by little. I mean, heck, they changed Yoda's look in the prequels, slightly from movie to movie. So I mean, they're gonna do the same thing with Grogu. And yeah, I don't know that I ever want to see like. I mean, I'm trying to think of like a Grogu that's like wizened like Mandalorian or Jedi Master. Like that might be. I mean, that'd be interesting. But I definitely want to see some evolution of him, as he can't be a baby forever, so he's got to grow up to some extent.
Well, I don't know what you think about this, but I and I've heard a lot. They're just rumors, but I buy into some of the rumors because I think that that's where Lucas wants to go anyway, which they're consulting with a lot. And Favreau and Filoni, I think it's a way that they continue on with the sequels. But there seems to be really strong rumors that they want to do episodes 10, 11, and 12, um which makes complete sense for Disney because they have to. But obviously, they've got the greatest thing ever right now with Grogu.
Yeah.
So I would think that Grogu is going to be a big part of the next sequel trilogy. And that would make perfect sense, right? Because then you would get everybody who's going. If they come out, because someone was talking there, I'm waiting for the next Star Wars needs a trilogy. And when you talk about from a sequel perspective, having Grogu as the heart of the next sequel trilogy, I think, is pivotal and the
Yeah.
most important thing that Disney is thinking about right now. Because Victoria, I don't know if you agree or not, but in my perspective, if everybody in the world here watches The Mandalorian knows that there's going to be another trilogy and Grogu is in it, they're all going to go nuts over that. I'm talking about like casual fans, every grandma, great grandma, grandpa, uncle, they're going to be like, oh, yeah, Grogu's
Yeah.
in it. We have got to go see this. But I think at that point, he's not going to be, like you're saying, the baby, but I think he will be around Luke's age or maybe that type of right. I think it's going to be right around like that, or maybe in that area where Luke and Ray were in there, and I think it's going to be epic. But I think that they're thinking about it right now. They have to go that way with it.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. That, I mean, that'd be a good way to connect everything, you know. Um, there, as much as the general audience seemed to enjoy the sequels, obviously not all fans did, but if you want to unite everybody, you create a new sequel trilogy, let's call it, and then you bring in what's really resonating with the world, Grogu. And if people have that knowledge that you're going to have that, in this new trilogy or series of films, then that's a huge incentive to go and pay to watch it. So I think Disney would be pretty wise to keep focusing on the parts that are really working for them, and Grogu is certainly really working for them.
Yeah, and you don't know. I heard something from someone looking into the species of his species, and apparently, and I don't know how true it is, but Yoda was already a Jedi Knight at like 100 or like 80 years old or something like that. So when I'm hearing this, I'm like, really? In some lore, it could be a thing. Like, I think sometimes we equate Grogu. It's like, okay, let's use the mathematics, the way Aries and Victoria have grown. So do the math. He could live to 900 years. He's a 50-year-old. He's still a child. So do the math on how it equates to a human. But I often wonder if the species, how like regular humans, we would go through puberty at a certain time, or we go through this stage at a certain time. So maybe with that species, they go through a growth spurt at a certain time
Mm,
that just accelerates. Because how in the world, if Grogu's 50 years old
yeah,
and is a baby, but Yoda's 100 and he is like smashing lightsabers around, there has to be some type of incredible accelerated growth spurt mentally anyway between that time. So I don't know how they're going to do it, but I think that they could spin it any way that they want to get him
yeah,
in it because it's easy.
yeah. No, that's true. I mean, even with like dogs, right? Like bigger dogs, bigger breeds, like they
Mm-hmm.
they tend to take longer to mature, but then their middle age is a shorter period. With small dogs, they mature very quickly, but then they stay middle aged for a long period of time. So I mean, we definitely see this in the real world. So I mean, if Grogu, and Yoda's species has a different kind of like, you know, biological component that is, varies from humans, yeah, there's a good chance that you could see like a growth spurt where it just like, maybe not overnight, but over a shorter period of time, and in within his relative life, right, of hundreds upon hundreds of years, his growth accelerates to whatever the next phase of that species is.
What if they went the other way and they just kept him as Mickey Mouse the way he is? Like seriously, like I just like kept him. Would that fly, or would it be like he's got to grow up? I mean, I guess they could spin it that way too. I don't I don't know. I could see them doing it, but I think they're going to utilize him more for. I mean, who's going to be carrying around taking
Yeah.
care of Grogu the next 50 years the same exact way? I don't think so. But they could go that way,
Mm,
but I don't
mhm.
know.
That's a good point.
It's a hard dilemma.
Yeah, but no, that's a good point because Mando is already, I don't know exactly how old he is, but he's clearly, he's been around for a while. He's a seasoned bounty hunter. He's a professional, and he doesn't live nearly as long as Grogu's going to live. So, yeah, at a certain point, Din Djarin will cease to exist, but Grogu is going to continue to exist, and he's got to be at least to some extent able to care for himself at that point. So yeah, I think that leaves even more room for them to make this change with him, where he does kind of go through a growth spurt, so to speak.
Let me ask you this, because I often wonder about it, and I think that Favreau and Filoni and Lucas are going to make some tremendous, and Deborah Chow, because man, I love what she did with the Obi-Wan series, but um, how do they? How do you explain where Thrawn was or is during the sequels? How do you explain where Grogu is during the sequels? And I know that a lot of people talk about in Rebels, there is that place, whatever the heck it is, with Ezra and Ahsoka. My daughters know so much more than this than I do. Um,
Mm.
it's like guys, they're like so when they watch it, but there is some evidence in Star Wars where you can manipulate time, or and time travel. I don't know
Yeah,
if they're going to go that way, but where the heck is Grogu? Certainly, I can tell you right now, he's not going to be dead. They're not going to say, "Oh, by the way, he's dead. Someone killed him, and he's not around." It's too much too much money for them now. So the
right.
question is, where the heck was he during the sequels?
Yeah, I don't know. It's certainly a good question. I think you're referring to the world between
Mhm.
worlds.
Yes,
Um,
yes.
so yeah, I mean they haven't obviously used that in live action, but maybe that's something we do glimpse in the Ahsoka show or in something else. Um,
Well, what happens if they do that? Like, can they use that, like Doctor Strange, to change things?
Oh, that's tricky because, we want Star Wars to be Star Wars and not like jump bandwagons, right? But I mean, it's canon, right? I mean, it's in Rebels, so I mean, they could use it and explain to some level, but I mean, then you get into okay, well, why don't you just go into the world between worlds, go back to when Anakin turns to the dark side and just kill the Emperor right there, or kill Anakin, and prevent like Darth Vader from being a thing, like. I mean, it's just if I think if you wade into that territory, you're really opening the door for a flood of you know of a bit of a something that's going to create a mess. So I'd personally prefer they ignore that. I know it's canon, but just kind of put it to the wayside. Keep doing your other original ideas that are inherently Star Wars, and don't deal with time travel. Don't deal with multiverses, because as cool as that is, um, we want Star Wars to be Star Wars at the end of the day.
Yeah, no, I understand that completely, and it makes me wonder then, if they did, let's go to what you're saying, and they didn't do that. Um, could Grogu, now this would be, I don't know if you're a wrestling fan, but it was very, very successful, and there was a wrestler, Hulk Hogan, who was loved by millions, and then eventually one day he told the fans, "You could stick it." Took off his red and yellow outfit and put on the black NWO, and was a bad guy, and that it was crushing Monday Night Football. It was such a phenomenon to watch WCW and NWO do this. You have to wonder, is there a mechanism where people are like, could Grogu go bad? And do you see any scenario where they would do that? And what would that do? Now, I don't know. But I feel like it's too much of a cash cow. But I go back to that wrestling thing when they did that with Hogan. they made a ton of money, but I don't know if they get it. I think it all depends on how they would tell the story.
Yeah, I don't think it would work. I mean, just thinking of Grogu, everybody loves Grogu because he's a cute little cuddly like green alien with big ears, like I think that's the formula. I think they stick with that formula. And
If they
I
went all
think
Sith Lord, it would be like devastating.
yeah, it would be. And I think also, when you think about like people that fell to the dark side, like they always did it for personal gain and because they had motivations, to do something or to accomplish some goal. And Grogu at this point is just Grogu, right? He likes to eat frogs and he likes to hang out with Mando. That's what he likes to do. Like he doesn't have any like he's not hungering for power. He's not looking to dominate the galaxy, anything like that. He's enjoying being, a kid. So I think, unless, decades or centuries later something, could change that obviously, but at this point in the story, I don't see having him like go to the dark side, really working for those reasons.
What about Grand Admiral Thrawn then? And how do you think I think he's probably going to mix in with Grogu somewhat. Um, that's going to be really, really interesting. Did Grand Admiral Thrawn, maybe he gets killed before the sequels? Maybe he's somewhere else. I feel like they've got a gold mine bringing in the heir to the empire, if you will. Um, I think it's going to be really, really interesting with Grand Admiral Thrawn, and I think that they can use him. If they didn't do the time manipulation, um, they can use him as maybe a reasoning as to where Grogu is and where that something else was happening somewhere else. But and maybe because the Emperor wasn't around, he was actually an entity and he had to get back into his body or whatever. I'm trying to remember everything with Rise of Skywalker. It was crazy. But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. No. Yeah, for sure. Um,
Like
but
I think that they can the Grand Admiral Thrawn story in Ahsoka, I think, is going to be amazing.
it'll be cool. We've never seen him in live action. He was a big player towards the end of Rebels, and I think he was awesome in Rebels too. He was just like so like he wasn't a typical villain that was just out for power, was just out there for the purposes of like being destructive. He was very like manipulative. He was very like, much a chess player, and he saw the big picture. And ultimately at the end, if you saw Rebels, that we don't know where he ends up exactly, but we know he's with Ezra. So what is that relationship like at the time of Ahsoka? Are they even together? What does that look like? There's so many questions, and I think this show will be the key to finally, after all these, how long has it been since Rebels? Like 6 years. This will be the key to like understanding, finally what happened between them, what happened to Thrawn, and what is the next step in that story. And yeah, seeing him in live action is going to be really cool.
I have a theory, and it's far out there, but there's actually very strong rumors to it. But they're just rumors, so who knows? But I believe that they're going to find a way to bring Kylo Ren back, and they're going to find a way to bring Luke back. Now, here's the thing. We got to remember that before Disney was running this, Lucas brought a lot of things back. When he knew he messed up with Darth Maul,
Yeah.
he just brought the darn guy back because he's George Lucas said he's going to do what he wants. And he did. Darth Maul got cut in half and he fell down a shaft pretty darn far without his legs or anything. So it looked like he was dead. And Lucas is actually quoted back in that day. It was like we got to have Darth Maul back. He's like, and he actually said, and I don't know where the quote was, but I was looking at the quote, and it was like Darth Maul got cut in half and fell down the shaft. He is dead. He's not coming back. Well, I guess there was such a demand for him to come back. Lucas brought him back to life. Now, what we got to remember here, Victoria, is this was well before Disney. Because I know we like to say, oh, Disney brings back the Emperor. George Lucas brings back this stuff because if he's like, oh, I messed that up, let me just bring him back. So you have to wonder, they definitely messed up Luke in killing him, I believe, anyway, in The Last Jedi. I think it was just a horrible move. You have Gandalf right there to go in all your 3 Lord of the Rings movies. Why are you killing him off? Plus the way that they did. But Kylo, because the way George sees this is supposed to have, kids with Rey to have the next Skywalkers and stuff like that. But I wonder if they're going to dive into that netherworld or whatever it is, where Qui-Gon is, and somehow they find a way to come back, and Force Ghost is just one aspect. I don't know. But I feel like there's something that they may dive into there.
Right. Regarding what you're saying with Luke, one of the Cantina Chatter podcast contributors we have, Tom, who's, on this live stream from time to time, he always says regarding the sequels that, the biggest problem is the very first line in the opening crawl of The Force Awakens, Luke Skywalker has vanished. If that wasn't the case, then, you wouldn't lead to the decisions that happened in the other movies. So yeah, if you have a world between world type thing in these movies, you could definitely try and fix those movies and, kind of redeem them, at least in the eyes of the people that are always, talking about how terrible they are. So that would be interesting. I loved Kylo, I loved Rey, as characters, and I completely welcome seeing them again, like for sure, like 100%. If it was done though, I totally want it to be like, in a respectful way that, honors like Star Wars at the same time. So it's interesting to think about for sure. And I think, that world between worlds thing, is a way to do that if you really wanted to.
There's a theory out there, or a rumor, that Grand Admiral Thrawn is going to clone Anakin. And because we talk about that Anakin is in the Ahsoka series, and I guess we're all assuming he's in there as a Force Ghost, which makes but I guess there was the Emperor cloned whatchamacallit. He cloned Tamara Morrison. He cloned Jango Fett. So is it impossible to think that they couldn't clone an Anakin, which would be absolutely crazy. And the other thing about this, which is really interesting, is the fact that you're building up to find out how this all ties into the sequels, but you don't know what Grand Admiral Thrawn is doing right now, because he wasn't part of the sequels, or at least we think he wasn't there. They could always tie this stuff in, which is really just intriguing to me, to figure out, okay, well, how are they going to tie, this in, which is completely mind-blowing to me. Like, how does Luke go from what we're seeing right now, crushing all the Dark Troopers, coming off from defeating the Emperor, defeating Darth Vader, defeating the Emperor, crushing the Dark Troopers, then becomes kind of like Hobo Luke, as a lot of people call him on there. And then where's Thrawn with all of this? Because he's not, you have General Hux and you have Supreme Leader Snoke, but you see all those Snoke clones.
Yeah.
There's a lot of cloning going on, Victoria. So I don't know. There's a theory out there that they've cloned another Anakin, which now without time travel, you bring Darth Vader back. But it's not really Darth Vader, but I don't know. It's and subjugated to him. But it's a far out theory, but Star Wars does clone people. That we know.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Cloning is a big part of it. Attack of the Clones, the Clone Wars, the Rise of Skywalker. Cloning is definitely built into Star Wars. So That could happen. They could clone Kylo Ren. They could clone Rey. Like, I mean, anything's possible, right?
We'll
Like,
get Dark Side Ray. We're gonna clone Dark Side
yes,
Ray.
fine. Yeah, Dark Side of Rey, so we can finally get that figure.
I need that figure, Victoria. I need the Dark Side Ray Hot Toys. Come on.
Yeah, it'd be cool. Speaking of hot toys, we haven't really talked about hot toys this whole
Hot
time.
Toys.
So,
What are those? What are those?
yeah. So, what do you say we spend our last few minutes here talking a little bit about hot toys and what the latest is in that world? Because I know, obviously we're passionate about hot toys and collect them, and yeah.
Yeah. I've heard of Hot Toys before, so I'd be happy to. I'd be happy to talk about it. Well, going right into that, I really believe that a Dark Side Ray is going to come because Hasbro, and you're into a lot with the Black series. They came out with a Dark Side Ray, and the reason that they did the same thing with Gentle Giant, they came out with their bust, a Dark Side Ray, is because they know that there is a market for that. And they know that there was demand for that, and they knew that they were going to make money off that. The interesting thing about it was Hasbro, Gentle Giant, Hot Toys, all these different toy companies didn't even want to touch after the disaster with The Last Jedi, which Star Wars is founded on toys. That's the collection that is founded on. It's not founded on comics. It's founded on toys. The collectible aspect of it, 100%. And then what's interesting was after The Last Jedi, you couldn't get anyone to go see the Solo movie. It was a Star Wars movie that was, it's a great movie. I love the Solo movie. But you couldn't even break 300 grand domestically, which is absolutely crazy. But there was definitely a lot of divisiveness because of that film. But then when The Rise of Skywalker came out, none of these companies wanted to make anything. Hasbro hardly had any line. They weren't even making 3 3/4. I was like, you got to be kidding. There's not even a 3 3/4 line for The Rise of Skywalker. They hardly made any Black Series figures back then for it. Hot Toys hardly made anything. But then all of a sudden, some time passes. Movie's out, movie's gone. Mandalorian comes out. Said they would never touch the sequels again. All of a sudden, tides are changing. And now you're seeing a couple of companies put out a Dark Side Ray. So you have to wonder, is Hot Toys going to follow suit? Because some of the stuff that these companies do, they're not too far behind, especially on those type of characters.
Right. Yeah, certainly. I mean, it would make sense. I mean, look at how the last Ray did. It did really well. Look at the secondary market values of any of the Rays really at this point. They're all selling for pretty good money. I mean, the Last Jedi Ray, Jedi Training,
beautiful,
Resistance Ray. I mean, the original Jakku Ray. Like, I mean, all of those are doing really well. So I mean, clearly there's a market for them, and it's hard to imagine that. I mean, Hot Toys observes these trends, right? And they're informed by these trends to some extent. So it's hard to imagine that they would just ignore that for years on end. I mean, at the end of the day, they are a business, right? They want to capitalize on momentum. Anytime there's like a shift in consciousness regarding certain characters or certain series or movies within Star Wars. And I mean, those figures are trending really well, as you well know with your market chart data. So yeah, I hope it happens. I mean, that's a really good way to do it. Then you get the alternate head with the sharp pointy teeth, and then and speaking of Solo, like I'm sure you remember the moment where Rio asks Han if his girlfriend has like sharp teeth. Like I always think of like Rey in that little glimpse right there where she looks
sure. No, absolutely. And I would love for them to give us an alternate head sculpt. But the thing of it is that what we're seeing a lot with Hot Toys is they're reusing molds, and this isn't really new, although it seems like it's new. But they've been doing this with Stormtrooper designs and Trooper designs for the longest time. So it cost it cost R&D, time, resources, money, and funds to make any type of new molds for any type of product that you're going to run off of those molds. And once you go ahead and invest in that, you want to be able to go ahead and get as much mileage, as much on the counters on the ticker that you can to get out of it. Which is why that with the Princess Leia mold that they have for Carrie Fisher, for the Hoth Leia, which they used again for the Bespin Leia, which they used again for the Endor Leia, which I believe that they will use again for several other Leias that are going to come out.
Yeah.
They're doing this a lot. They've done it with Luke, and you have to wonder with that Rey that is selling so well in the secondary market, and they got rid of it, just got in stock for a few weeks, and it was completely gone. Is it possible that the dark side Rey would probably sell double of even the Rey and Dio? And I say absolutely. It absolutely would.
Yeah.
So for them, they don't have to really invest anything in it. They got the head sculpt. If they want an alternate one, like you're saying with the teeth, they already got the head sculpt. They put some paint. They do a couple of things in it. Put in the black robes, Darth Maul's lightsaber, Kylo Ren's, whatever. Put it in a box. Easy money for them. Easy.
Yeah, it is. I think Single Songwriter makes a good point here. If they ever do a dark side Rey, maybe they should limit the number of them so that it doesn't just sit for a long period of time. And I mean, obviously that didn't happen with the last Rey from The Rise of Skywalker. I mean, that one, like you said, just kind of came and went pretty quickly. I think, I was saying earlier that Hot Toys isn't, they're obviously aware of what the market trends are and, how people are reacting to characters and such. But at the same time, I think part of the appeal of Hot Toys is that, you may just end up with one of those grail pieces that skyrockets, to a very high value. And for some people, that's, not me necessarily, but for some people, that's a really appealing, like, part of collecting Hot Toys. So, there's always that element is like, is this going to be the next piece that, ends up being, that one, the next Tarkin or the next Krennic or the next Darkside Anakin. And, I think based on that alone, they're not going to re-release every, single piece that has been really popular. But, yeah, I think, there's definitely a balance to strike there, right? Because you don't want anything to sit around because then that just won't happen again next time. But you also don't want to sell so few of them that you don't get a return on your investment. And, so, I mean, I'm sure Hot Toys knows their numbers and they know, how many they need to sell in order to recoup their costs and such. And, for the R&D that goes into retooling something or making it into something new. So I wouldn't be too worried about that personally, but, things happen every now and then, of course.
No, absolutely. It's absolutely great thoughts there. And I think Single Songwriter is 100% right. When they make Dark Side Rey, and I believe that they will, it will 1000% be in limited quantities. I believe that the Rey and Dio was in very, very limited quantities. But I also think that it was in much, much higher demand than people thought because that figure came out 1,000 times better than the prototype photos, which I thought looked pretty good. But a lot of people were like, hey, it looks more like Jennifer Garner, which she looks great too. And I did see some photos where it did remind me of Jennifer Garner, who I love Jennifer Garner. But when you saw the videos of that Rey that came out, goodness gracious me. And I think that people were like, wow, this was just fantastic. But I think that what's going on with Hot Toys, to piggyback on top of what Single Songwriter is saying, you're going to see coming out of COVID and coming into this new economy, less volume in production, but more production, more figures, but less volume in production of those figures. Meaning, like you talked about the Arena Suit Boba Fett. The Arena Suit Boba Fett is the same mold as the Vintage Color Boba Fett, which is the same mold as the Empire Strikes Back Boba Fett. It's different paint apps. So, and they're going to do the same thing with the Return of the Jedi Boba Fett, and they're going to use both of these over and over and over and over again, but limited quantities. They still have the armor in stock from last year, and that was an exclusive. And the reason why that one went out is because it's a much lower quantity. So, Victoria, I really believe that with a figure like Rey, Absolutely. But I don't think it's even necessarily bucketed into it has to be an exclusive. I think with a lot of these figures that they're going to be coming out with, Sideshow can only do so much since they're the main distributor, Victoria. We want to go ahead and continue to order the same amounts because we just want to keep our warehouses full of stock that no one's buying. And we're going to rent another warehouse actually because we like storing it up like dragons store up gold. It's just not going to happen. So what's going to happen
Mhm.
is they're going to order less. And Hot Toys is going to be like, okay, well, we were kind of expecting to run 10,000 of these. You only want 5,000, but we'll come out with a chrome plated Ray. Will you buy 3,000 of those? Sure. And that's what they're going to do.
Yeah, no, it makes good sense for sure. Very good sense. Um, anything you're waiting to get shipped right now? Anything you're waiting on these lately?
Dark Trooper. Dark Trooper to go with my Moff Gideon that I just got, which is absolutely phenomenal. So I'm waiting for the Dark Trooper, and I honestly don't think that they made very, very many of those because they weren't very well received when they came out. I don't even think that they made it best selling wise past the top 10 on Hot Toys when you sorted out Star Wars, best selling wise. And then it was kind of very down there for a while. And then all of a sudden, the final production photos came out. But even more importantly, the videos came out, and people were like spilling their coffee, going, wow, this thing looks incredible. And it goes with Moff Gideon, which is out. And it goes with Luke Skywalker, which is coming out. And it goes with the crow plated Mandalorian with the Pedro Pascal head sculpt, which is coming out. And I'm looking forward to all of those Victorias because it's August 27. It's going to be September, and we got 4 months for those figures to come out. The Mandalorian, the Luke Skywalker. Oh, I'm so excited! But the Dark Trooper goes with all those figures. I think it's going to be gone quick.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see. As are all these figures, right? When they come out, like you're always curious, like how long is it going to last? How long? Some of them, like I'm surprised, have been in stock as long as they have, right? Like the 501st Trooper, Captain Rex. Some of those, like just kind of. But I think Hot Toys. They've been doing this for a long time now. They have the data. They know how many these companies and distributors will order. So and good stuff will sell through immediately, even if it takes a little bit. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
for sure. I think that like you look at a lot of the stuff that's in stock still, like Captain Rex or some of these, the 501st are out now, but you still got some of those in there. And I think that the reason why the arena suit Boba Fett went out so quick, and also the not just the arena suit Boba Fett, but the chrome plated clone trooper with the two helmets that it comes with went out of stock very, very quickly. I think because they were like, hey, the armor, we still have it in stock. So when you look at like the best car Mandalorian, deluxe and non-deluxe, which is still in stock, but they made so many. I heard 40,000 of those, which is insane amount. But and it's still very selling very high. It's not on the bottom like where the blurg is. You
Yeah.
have to wonder, Victoria, how much of the chrome plated Mandalorian that's coming out with the Pedro Pascal head sculpt are they going to order? Is it going to be, Victoria, the same thing where it's like, well, we kind of got burned on the armor and we're trying to get rid of that one. So with the arena suit Boba Fett or any of these exclusives, we're going to go low. Is it possible that they're going to have the same methodology with this Mandalorian figure coming out?
Yeah, I think they're going to. I mean, just based on how the previous Beskar Mando did, I think they're probably going to want to hold back a little bit. I know part of that was that they announced the 2.0 Beskar Mando like right as the first one started like shipping. And then people started canceling their orders in anticipation of the new one that's coming out. So I don't know why they decided to announce it that way, but part of it is that. And I think that some of these companies probably did want a lot of that figure because that's the main character of the series, and he comes with Grogu, and there's a deluxe version, and um I don't think they're going to order as many of the new 2.0 version as they did for that one. And I think it'll be out there in pretty decent number just because, again, it is Mando. It is a popular thing. There's always going to be people that want that. But I think it'll be a little more scarce than the current previous Beskar Mando.
Yeah, it's a good point. It is Mandalorian, so you have to think that they're going to order a good amount. But I'm wondering if they're going to. It's going to be interesting with these figures that are coming out and the figures next year, Victoria, because I almost get a sense that I think they had a certain amount of safety stock that they would buy for people that want the figure afterwards. But I almost getting the sense with some of these, are they going to go more towards, hey, we're going to fill the pre-orders and then we're going to drastically reduce what we're going to. I would think with him, with the Mandalorian season 3, that's like the pivotal Mandalorian. I mean, it looks absolutely sensational. So I would have to believe that they got to get some stock in there. But I also think that they're probably just like, I can't believe we still got this, and it's selling great.
Yeah.
But they've got these other Mandos in stock, so it's like, okay, now we're going to get another Mando. I'm wondering. I'm going to be very interested. I don't really know, but I'm going to be very interesting to follow it on 6 Scale Cantina and the market chart for sure. I feel like some changes are happening, but you don't know.
You don't know. You just never know. Well, cool stuff, Aries. Any final thoughts you want to share before we depart from the cantinas?
Well, I love this cantina, Victoria. This is the second time that I'm on here. I want to do this again. This was so much fun. We got into aliens, we got into UFOs, we got into smartphones, we got into
Maps.
kids. Yeah, I know, right? This is definitely Cantina Social Hour.
Yeah.
I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And my final thoughts is thank you so much for letting me come in your cantina. It's a huge privilege. You got an awesome channel. You have an awesome vibe as well. And just really just thankful that you would have me in here to spend this time with you. And I want to thank everybody, in the chat for sticking in here and listening to this guy spill his coffee.
Definitely. No, very kind. Thank you, Aries. I appreciate the nice words. And same to you. 6 Scale Cantina, it's a blast. It's positive, it's fun, it's entertaining. And I always have you on, even if I'm not just sitting here watching, even if it's on a replay, I have you on. And while I'm organizing my shelves or I'm working on folding laundry, whatever it is, I love it. And similarly, it was great being on your show this past Wednesday. And it's great to have you on again tonight. And definitely looking forward to the next time our cantinas will cross paths and intersect. And we'll get to do this again in the future.
Absolutely. I look forward to it. And we'll have to just bring even more drinks the next time.
Yes, definitely. Definitely more drinks. So, Aries, where can our viewers and listeners go to look you up on the internet?
Well, right there, 6 Scale Cantina is the name of the channel. So you can go right into YouTube, put in 6 Scale Cantina, and I appreciate that so much. You can subscribe to the channel. You can check out all the videos. I specialize in Star Wars for Hot Toys and a lot of secondary market and primary market information, all based on data that I spend hours and hours per week putting together and tracking. It's something that I've done for a long time, even before ever. It's just what I do when I collect. So do appreciate your support. But you can also just check out 6scalecantina.com. I do have a website that I maintain that actually has all of this data in what we call the market value chart at 6scalecantina.com. So you definitely want to check that out. It has all the information on every hot toy in the secondary market for Star Wars, if it's trending up, if it's trending down, or if it's steady. And we also have the Marvel Hot Toys market value chart under construction. We're also going to be putting in quite a bit of other collectibles market charts in there that's in the works. So definitely check me out, 6 Scale Cantina. Do appreciate it.
Awesome. And we do have links in the description. So certainly click on Aries's channel and the website. You're not going to find information like this if you're interested in the market data and seeing what these hot toys are trending for anywhere else, like you will in 6 Scale Cantina. So certainly check it out. And everybody in the chat, thank you for your questions. It's been fun. We really appreciate seeing the comments in there. They add a lot to this conversation. And Aries, my friend, thanks again for coming on. And as always, it was a blast. And I look forward to doing it again at some point in the future.
Sounds good. Hey, thank you so much, Victoria. Cheers to everybody and stay thirsty.
Cheers. Bye, everybody.